watching Stat News Global. I'm Amitabh Brevi, and joining us from Sydney is an investigative journalist and the editor of The Klaxon, Anthony Klan. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Klan.
Thank you for having me.
Just wanted to go into two of your reports that you have talked about China and Pakistan and what are called research facilities there, which presumably would or allegedly could also be could have a dual use. Give us a little bit more insight into what you found and how you found it.
Certainly. So there have been a number of concerns have been raised, and what we've found is that over the past, probably over the past 6 to 8 weeks, the alerts have sort of been raising greater and greater. But at the heart of it is you have Chinese's Wuhan laboratory doing research studies on deadly pathogens within Pakistan. Now, obviously, this could have, it could be looking for cures for diseases, but it also could be used for dual use for weaponry. So that's why there are concerns about it, and quite serious, very serious concerns, including from numerous intelligence sources. So we've come by that information and we've looked further into the claims, and we have been able to establish that there are at least 5 co-projects that have occurred between China and Pakistan, paid for by China on Pakistan soil, involving some of the most deadly and contagious pathogens. And we're talking about West Nile virus, MERS coronavirus, a number of different ones. But the concern is, what is going on? Where's the transparency? Where is this taking place? Are the laboratories where these pathogens are being dealt with or sequenced, etc., are they sufficient? Do they have sufficient safety levels in order to prevent another disaster from happening, basically, from a spread? Let's say, yeah.
Sure. So that's an accidental spread, but your sources also corroborated by open source studies that have been published that show at least a certain level of collaboration between China and Pakistan, right?
Yes, and it's the collaboration is absolute. There's no shades of grey about it. It is that each of the 5 studies is all China and Pakistan. Each of them funded by overwhelmingly or 100% by China, and usually through the Wuhan Institute of Virology. So there's a team of scientists, corona scientists specifically, from the Wuhan Institute, from the China Academy of Sciences, which runs the Wuhan Institute, that are doing tests and are doing comprehensive tests on Pakistani soil now, which has raised concerns because obviously these sort of pathogens could be weaponized quite easily. And so there's the call for transparency. Now, we've had, perhaps unsurprisingly, the Chinese government and Pakistan have come out and denied thoroughly, etc., which is not unexpected. However, there's been some interesting points have arisen. For example, the Pakistani government has said there's no secret about this BSL level 3. Now, this is what we call biological safety level 3, and this is up right at the top end of the most risky. And they said, look, there's no secret about this facility, but they haven't actually mentioned where this facility is. We didn't mention a specific facility, so they've confirmed that. The other concern is some of these pathogens are BSL-4, which is the absolute top. Now, they haven't said anything about having a facility that can look after or that is capable of safely handling such pathogens. So there are a couple of the major issues that jump out, and that the whole process is largely being conducted in secret, aside, of course, from these studies we have sourced from public sources, from open sources. So put together, there are a lot of questions that arise.
Mr. Klan, as you're pointing out, both the Pakistani Foreign Ministry and the Chinese Embassy in Islamabad have issued statements following, I think, your first report, yes, in which they said it was fabricated, etc. But your open source, again, pointing to those BSL-3 level laboratory, which the Pakistanis are admitting to. Explain to us simply what's the difference between BSL-3 and 4, and if it's happening in BSL-4, what's the danger?
Okay, so there's BSL 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, 1 and 2 typically refers to can be as mundane as blood tests or sort of scientific lower level, your undergraduate university sort of studies. 3 and 4, though, is where you get into the really high danger pathogens. We're talking diseases for which there's no known cure, for which there is, which spread very rapidly among human population if they become part of the chain, if they do enter the population. So that's the biggest concern, that they're highly contagious, deadly, and there's no known cure. So that's what you're looking at with 3 and 4.
And you mentioned anthrax and MERS. So is the cover being given as, say, possibly apart from corona, which is now, of course, the big thing around the world, is the cover being given as research to look for vaccines for that, or what really is it?
So it's difficult to ascertain exactly what it is, because the responses have just been, oh, it's all fake news, it's all nothing, et cetera, et cetera. Now, of course, since then we've come forward with these studies, and it's just been radio silence, because these studies are in-depth journal, peer-reviewed, sort of solid pieces of work. And as I mentioned before, of course, they could be used for finding a cure, but it does seem unusual that you have China funding this in Pakistan on Pakistani soil, when you have intelligence sources saying, look, this is a way to, if there is a problem, that China can sort of isolate it toward Pakistan. Also, it can get up to activities that perhaps it wouldn't be able to or doesn't feel comfortable with doing on Chinese soil. Now, on the flip side, a couple of these studies look at the prevalence of, a lot of the studies are about the prevalence of these certain diseases in livestock. Now, when they're in livestock, it's generally not much of a problem. It's when they leap over. So these studies look at the cross between, say, 1,000 herdsmen or people that deal with animals, and blood tests from animals to see how much of it's jumping across, and which is fine. And a lot of it, it's not a big deal compared to a lot of the health issues in Pakistan. I mean, if you've got many other things that can be much more easily fixed that do have current cures. There just isn't the money or the organisation.
Yeah, you're talking about zoonotic spread. Now, the studies that have been published are talking about, say, herdsmen or camels being used in that. And can you also elaborate on why China can be suspected of not conducting this research on its own soil?
The studies are of several thousand Pakistani citizens and animals on Pakistani soil. So we know that the source of the blood plasma, etc., is definitely taken in Pakistan. So we know it's been collected in Pakistan. It's unclear in each of the documents where the laboratory studies happened. We know they happened in several laboratories. We know that Wuhan at one stage has provided pathogens for testing at another laboratory. We just don't know where that is. Now, which is why it's interesting, very interesting, that Pakistan has confirmed that it is happening at a laboratory on Pakistan soil. Now, we don't know where that is. We suspect it's part of the Pakistani military, and Pakistan Military's Defence Science and Technology Organisation is now running this, and that is also a concern. Has been raised with me by intelligence sources, because this puts it outside of the sort of university research sector and standard civil structures. So there isn't that level of transparency at all. And so the question is why, and that's what we haven't heard on.
And you're also saying that it's possible or very plausible that China is doing this because of deniability. We saw what happened with the coronavirus, the Wuhan virus. There were initial reports suggesting that it could have escaped or being created in the Wuhan lab, and that has, medically at least, it seems to have been denied completely. But I beg your pardon, it does give them that opportunity, right?
It does indeed, and there are still questions around the Wuhan Institute and how things came about. And I mean, this sort of thing could be cleared up with letting international force come in and have a look at things. But China's denying that just adds to the questions. So that's a valid concern. That is a concern that is raised, and I can see the validity in that.
And the concern you're also raising is, and your sources in the intelligence are raising, is that, one, if there is any accidental release of whatever's been tested there, or if there is a dual use of bio-warfare. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, that's correct. That's correct. And obviously there's ongoing tensions, long ongoing tensions between India and Pakistan. The Pakistan military is the one actually driving this, not the government so much. So the government attempted to pull away, and this is an important point. A lot of this is tied to the Belt and Road Initiative, the tie-up between Pakistan and China. Now, China's obviously has these projects around the world in many places, but this is the flagship one. We're looking at around 64 billion US dollars. It's enormous. So this is a tie-up directly from that. And so one reason put forward from China in documents I've seen is that, okay, we're doing these tests to check that if we're going to have our people working through Pakistan, that these virology tests, etc., we're not going to have more coronavirus. Which, hey, that's fair enough. But then you put that in context, you think, well, hang on, if you do have other diseases that are much more easily fixed in Pakistan, why aren't you fixing those as opposed to playing Frankenstein with some diseases that have been around for many decades, or been around for forever, but have been known to mankind for many decades, sometimes almost 90, 100 years.
So does it seem, or does the whatever reports or studies that you have read or documents, does it indicate that the money is coming from CPEC?
Yes. Yes, all the money is coming from CPAC in at least 4 of the 5 studies, and 1 is unclear. But the other 4, they actually use the name of the CPAC program we've ascertained. Yes.
And your sources are indicating that countries in the region and across the world are aware of this and are probably looking into it?
Yes.
Any elaboration that you can give on that? I know it's a sensitive source.
Not a great deal, but the highly valid sources, highly valid intelligence sources, will say multiple sources have shared this concern.
Right. Anthony Klan, thank you so much for sharing your insights into your reports, and we hope to keep coming back to you as you do more on them. Thanks for your time.
Much appreciate your time. Thank you.
And if you do like our initiatives, you can log on to our website, statnewsglobal.com, and support us. You're watching Stat News Global. I'm Amitabh Reddy.